Stacy Compton is part of the stellar 2000 class of rookies on the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit. The driver of Melling Racing's Kodiak Ford joins me next on This Week in NASCAR. Hi, welcome to This Week in NASCAR. Allen Bestwick here at our Charlotte studios. It's off to Richmond, Virginia this weekend for the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, where we'll look to extend the record streak of different winners that has opened the 2000 campaign to 11 straight weeks. And a very distinct possibility, we could see yet another new face in victory lane on the Richmond three-quarter mile Saturday night. Helping us get ready for this weekend's action, Stacy Compton, who has spent the last few years on the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series and in 2000 makes the move to the Winston Cup level with Melling Racing and their Kodiak Ford. Stacy will join me here in a couple of minutes to talk about his initial season in Winston Cup competition. First, we start with a look back at what happened on the racetrack over the past weekend. We call it Speed Shots, and we zip off to Southern California for the Napa Auto Parts 500 at the California Speedway. Mike Skinner set a new track record in qualifying and started from pole position in a race that would feature 20 lead changes among 15 different drivers. Early trouble for the eventual winner, Jeremy Mayfield. He loses a lap on pit road under caution when the crew has to bypass a malfunctioning oil cooler. He'd make the lap up shortly after the restart and get back in the hunt for the win. Star of the day was Matt Kenseth. Led most of the time between laps 87 and 220 of the 250-lap race, sometimes by as much as 4 seconds. He looked to have the win in hand until Jimmy Spencer hit the wall with 32 laps to go, bringing out the caution and giving the competition a chance. Pit strategy on the pit stops. Kenseth's team goes for 4 tires, but a handful of teams, including Jeremy Mayfield's, go for 2. Matt would be 8th in line on the restart. Mayfield would restart in 2nd, quickly pass Mark Martin's faltering car for the top spot. Mayfield with a good advantage on the field until 8 laps to go. Dick Trickle spins and backs into the wall in turn number 4. Yellow flags out, and that gives Bobby Labonte a chance at Mayfield. On the restart with 4 to go, Mayfield's car has the ignition box quit. While he's fiddling with the switches in turn 1, Labonte gets underneath him. Then Mayfield gets the backup box going, pulls back around Labonte. White flag now. Robbie Gordon spins in turn 4, but gets off the racetrack. Mayfield races back around to take the checkered flag and score his 2nd NASCAR Winston Cup Series win. Jeremy Mayfield taking the Napa Auto Parts 500 on Sunday. Championship standings after the 10th race of the season. Bobby Labonte goes back around Mark Martin into the point lead, up by 20 now over Martin. Mayfield's win moving him up 2 spots to 7th, pending the outcome of NASCAR's disciplinary action against his team from Talladega, which we will reveal to you very shortly. First, the NASCAR Busch Series action for the weekend. The Auto Club 300 in California Saturday. Jeff Green on pole in a race that featured 14 lead changes among 10 different drivers. Green, Matt Kenseth, and the Burton brothers, Jeff and Ward, would be the 4 cars in the lead group most of the day. The action was pretty good, as you see here, with a 3-wide race for the lead, plus a lap car tucked up there on the outside. Middle stages of the race, Jeff Burton got away from the pack on a long green flag run. Other than that, the lead pretty closely contested throughout the 300 miles. You see Burton here racing with brother Ward for the top spot in the middle stages of the race. 33 laps to go. Pit stops under the caution. The Burtons go for 2 tires. Matt Kenseth gets 4. It is Ward Burton who gets off of pit road first and takes the lead away from brother Jeff, who is leading at the stop. Jeff will move from 4th to 2nd with 1 pass. 12 laps to go up on the outside of both Green and Kenseth. Starts pressuring brother Ward. Ward moves high to block in turn 4 with 7 to go, but the car gets away from him. Spins and crashes while leading the race. Kenseth goes underneath Jeff Burton and Ward Burton into the lead, coming to the caution flag, and Matt Kenseth runs out the final laps to score his 2nd NASCAR Busch Series win of the season and his 2nd straight. At the California Speedway, Matt Kenseth winning the Auto Club 300. Busch Series championship standings, Jeff Green leads Todd Bodine by 39 points. After 10 races, the Busch Series runs at Richmond on Friday night. The big news story of the week involves Jeremy Mayfield's team. On Tuesday, NASCAR announcing the fines and penalties as a result of Mayfield's team running some altered fuel during the Die Hard 500 at Talladega now nearly 3 weeks ago. As a result of the investigation, Mayfield's crew chief, Peter Suspenzo, has been suspended 4 weeks, basically until after the Dover race on June 6th. He will not be allowed to be with the team at the racetrack through Richmond, through Charlotte, both the Winston and the 600, and through the Dover race. Team owner Michael Kranefis fined $50,000 and 151 car owner points. The driver, Jeremy Mayfield, also will lose 151 driver points as a result of the infraction. So Mayfield will be knocked from 7th, where he was after the California race, down to 14th in the Winston Cup Championship standings heading into the Richmond event this week. So that the aftermath of the illegal fuel situation. A little understanding here, NASCAR needed to take the fuel to outside laboratories to get it all documented and so on. That's why it took so long to resolve the issue. But now, Tuesday of this week, the penalties handed down to Jeremy Mayfield's team. Mayfield's car found to be a little bit too low in post-race inspection after the California race. Nothing on that as of our taping yet. NASCAR still working on resolving that issue. And when we come back, our spotlight guest will join us. It is Stacy Compton, when This Week in NASCAR returns in a minute.
This Week in NASCAR is brought to you by Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. Lowe's, improving home improvement.
He's part of this year's bumper crop of Rookie of the Year candidates in Winston Cup racing, looking to make his mark with a very storied team. Now joining us, driver of Melling Racing's Kodiak machine, Stacy Compton. How you doing?
Good, Alan.
Appreciate you taking time to come on down here and be with us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Let's talk, just to get the conversation rolling, about your weekend at California. Qualified 8th, finished 28th. Story of your weekend was?
You know, I think it's the first time this year that we've had reasons why we finished back there. The Kodiak Melling Taurus was good. We had a decent run all day. We had a tire equalizer the first run. Couldn't figure out why the car got so tight. We come in, made some serious adjustments, and then we checked the air pressure. We figured out we had an equalized tire. And we lost the majority of our positions. We lost early. We came in, we unhooked the rear bar, went back to like 38th, and then made our way back up to like 22nd. The car was really good. We had some good pit stops, and you know, all in all, it wasn't a bad weekend. We know we're a lot better than 28th, so we're pretty excited about going to some more tracks now.
I think it would be fair to say the story of your season has been good on Friday, not as good on Sunday. You've made the top 25 in 6 out of 10 races qualifying is concerned. Just haven't been able to get the finishes where you'd like. Agree, disagree?
I totally agree. I mean, we really concentrated as a team on qualifying because we knew that coming into this thing, we didn't have enough points to rely on. And we really concentrated on qualifying, as we did in the truck series. But we're qualifying in the Winston Cup is a lot different. Friday is basically qualifying. I mean, that's all you concentrate on. And we haven't had an opportunity to work on race stuff as much as we wanted. All the test sessions we went to, we worked on qualifying. Now that we feel like we're getting a little bit of a grasp on qualifying, we're starting to work on race stuff, and we're seeing huge improvements. My crew chief and engineer, you know, Jerry Pitts and Skip and Jeff Weiss, we're all working really good as far as what we need to do for the races now. We're getting used to each other. It took them a while to get used to what a little loose was for me, and for me to get used to them. And boy, I see gains every week, and getting better and better.
Adapting to the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, the hardest thing for you so far as a driver has been what?
Probably unloading at like a Darlington, a place that I've never been. They've got it taped up and say, okay, go give me a qualifying lap. You know, I think that's probably been the toughest thing. You know, once the racing starts, racing's racing. You know, obviously it's a lot more intense here in Winston Cup, but it's
there's an intense minute for you.
Yeah, once you start racing, I mean, everybody's goal is the same, and that's to do the best you can possibly do for the team and the sponsor. And I don't think the racing has been as big of a adjustment as qualifying, and given everything you've got on Friday just solely to qualifying.
If you could pinpoint the one lesson that you've learned so far in your rookie season that you would consider to have been the biggest, it would be what?
Well, I guess everybody says this: patience. You know, we at Texas, we were loose. I mean, we were extremely loose, and should have adjusted a little bit more on it. And I ended up getting into the wall there, and that was a mistake on my part. You know, I knew we were extremely loose, but the way these things work lately with the new tires, the cars start out a little bit loose and then they tighten up. And we started just a little bit too free, and I knew it, but ran just a little bit harder than I should have, trying to get caught back up, and ended up getting into the wall a little bit. So, I mean, I think you'd have to say patience. You know, everybody says Winston Cup, it's 500 miles, but I'm telling you what, it's like a Saturday night short track from the time they drop a green until they drop a checkered. Nobody lays back in this series, and you know, initially when I first stepped in, I thought, well, you got 500 miles, you can take your time and try to work your way to the front. Boy, if you don't run as hard as you can run, but I think I'm learning patience as far as when the car is good enough to go towards the front and when it's not, and that's been a big part.
What would you say is the best race you've driven so far this season?
Probably say Darlington. When I first got there, I thought, man, there's no way you can get around this place. By the end of the race, I had to requalify. I got a little too aggressive in qualifying and messed up. But I think, all in all, the best race we've had would probably be, we potentially could have come out of there with the top 10. And 2 laps later, the caution came out. We could have potentially come out of there running third. And we had a good race there, but we ended up losing the motor. So, I mean, we've had some awful good races in the works and just not work out the way we needed them to. But you know, the guys at Kodiak's been great. They haven't put any pressure on me as a driver, and as a team, those guys have put no pressure on us either. So it's, all in all, it's been a decent year. But we're building for the future. We're building for the second half of the year. We're getting laps. That's one of the goals, was to go out and run as many laps as we possibly can and be ready for the second half of the year. And so far, that's what we've been able to do.
Stacy Compton is with us, driver of the Kodiak Ford for Melling Racing. Time for a commercial break. We'll come back and continue our visit on This Week in NASCAR in just a minute. Here's our salute to NASCAR's Touring Division victors over the weekend, including Rick Fuller, who won the Spring Sizzler for the Featherlight Modified Series for the 3rd time, and Greg Persley, who scored his 2nd career Southwest Series win, that one at Irwindale Speedway in Southern California. Back on This Week in NASCAR, visiting with Stacy Compton, driver of the Kodiak Ford for Melling Racing, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates in the Winston Cup Tour this season. Melling is a team with a pretty illustrious history going back to its days with Bill Elliott. It's seen its shares of ups and downs over the last few years. Evaluate its strengths and where it needs to build a little more right now.
Well, I think if you look at the team as a whole, we've hired a lot of people. Jeff Weiss is doing a great job with managing the team. Mark's doing a great job. He's got a lot on his hands, and he's doing a tremendous job with the team, as well as Melling oil pumps up there in Michigan. But you know, I think this team has a lot of history, and you know, the team knows how to win. The team knows how to win championships. There's people still there that was there back then, and it's definitely helped my learning curve. We've as a team have hired a lot of people. We've put a lot of pieces in place for the future. You know, we're putting in chassis dynos, and we're getting the equipment in there for the future, and I think that's a strong point of this. I mean, we're doing in-house chassis now. That every time we've taken a car out that we've built in-house, it's been really, really good. We've been building all winter, and hopefully by mid-season we'll have all new chassis, and I think that's going to be a big benefit to us. So I think the team has been there and done that, and I think that is one of the strengths that helps me, because they don't put any pressure on me as a driver, and that's been pretty big. You know, stepping into this series is it's a handful, and it's like I said, they've been awful good as far as not putting any pressure on it, and it's a good solid team too. I mean, Mark Melling has as much commitment to this sport as anybody I've ever seen, and that means a lot to a driver, and it means a lot to the guys in the shop, knowing that we're going to be here for a long time.
You are from a place called Hurt, Virginia. Where is Hurt, Virginia?
Actually, I'm from a place called Grit, Virginia, but we don't have a post office, so I've got a Hurt address. It's in between Lynchburg and Alta Vista, or actually Lynchburg and Danville, right on Route 29, so it's about 2.5 hours from here, not too far.
There you go.
Don't have a lot of traffic jams down there.
No. You first came to many people in Winston Cup Racing's notice back in 1996. You showed up at Martinsville. You'd been a Winston Racing Series champion at local tracks and so on. Showed up at Martinsville and qualified, what, 9th for a Winston Cup race?
Qualified 9th, and back then I didn't have a clue what we were doing. I'll never forget, Mike Wallace walked up to me. I've never met Mike Wallace. He poked me in the chest. He said, "You don't know me and I don't know you, but you don't have a clue what you just did." And turned around and walked off, you know. And I was like, what did I do, you know? Looking back now, we didn't have a clue. I mean, we didn't tape off the grill. We didn't fool with air pressures. We didn't bump time. We didn't do anything, you know.
Yeah.
Went out and qualified 400s off the pole, and got a lot of people's attention. Met a lot of good people. I mean, met David Hodson, which, you know, gave me the truck ride, and in turn met a lot of people that I know now in Winston Cup. And it was, looking back at it now, I don't know if I had the opportunity to do it again, knowing now what I know, I don't know if we'd do it or not.
Yeah, but it worked out pretty good.
It worked out well. I sure appreciate the guys that, a couple businessmen out of Lynchburg actually bought Alan Dillard's team. And said, let's go Winston Cup racing, and decided, yeah, let's try it, you know.
Stacy Compton with us, driver of the Kodiak Taurus from Elling Racing. Will continue in just a minute. Here's the NASCAR racing calendar for the weekend. Modifieds in Richmond Thursday night tonight. Busch Series Friday night. Then Saturday, the Winston Cup Series at Richmond, plus the Southwest Series in Tucson and the Northwest Series in Yakima, Washington. Sunday, a doubleheader in St. Louis, the Remax Challenge Cars and the Craftsman Truck Series on the Gateway 1.25 miles. Back on This Week in NASCAR, time now for the GM Fan Forum, where we take your questions and put them to our weekly guests. That is the phone number if you'd like to leave one for a future guest on This Week in NASCAR. And we take questions now for Stacy Compton, driver of the Kodiak Ford from Elling Racing. First up, Russell in Marietta, Georgia. Hi, you're on the show. Go ahead.
Since you've come into Winston Cup, is it what you was expecting compared to going from the Craftsman Truck Series, jumping right over Busch Series into the Winston Cup? It's a lot more difficult maybe than what you expected, and how do you feel about how things are going for you with the team that you're with now?
Transition.
You know, I think the transition, as we talked earlier, probably the biggest transition is that qualifying day on Friday. I never had a clue that it was that intense, and you put so much into qualifying. I mean, we come into this, and last year with the RC Dodge, we concentrated on qualifying. We had 6 poles, and I think that really helped us when we stepped into this series, but we never put as much emphasis on qualifying in the trucks as they do here. The transition, I think the Winston Cup cars and the trucks are a lot closer than people give them credit. Horsepower-wise, chassis-wise, they're not that much different. Now, obviously, when you go to places like Texas, downforce makes a big difference. But, yeah, I think, once again, the biggest transition has been that qualifying day, and so much emphasis put on that. The racing end of it, you know, it's pretty intense from start to finish. And the transition, I'm not saying it's been easy by no means, but I don't think the transition has been quite as abrupt as what I initially thought once the racing starts. Up until race day, it's been pretty interesting.
Different world.
Yeah.
Our next call comes from right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. David Griffin, hi, you're on This Week in NASCAR.
Stacy, I noticed you have several sponsors on your car throughout the year. Can you tell me exactly what is Cougar Racing?
What is Cougar?
Well, Cougar is, I think it's a brand, it's a cat, part of the cat family. No, I'm just kidding. It's, Cougar is, it's another brand of Kodiak. It's another brand of smokeless tobacco, and it's pretty strong on the West Coast. Initially, we were going to run the Cougar car on the West Coast, and then they end up changing around. It's a good-looking car, so they end up changing around, and we're going to run it. A lot of times we'll run, like the first Daytona, we'll run the Kodiak car. The second, we'll run the Cougar. We'll switch about back and forth like that. Texas was a big race for Cougar, so we decided to run it there. Of course, California was also a big race for it. So, but it's another brand of smokeless tobacco.
There you go. Simple enough. You get confused about which car you're going to when the paint changes from week to week?
We do. I mean, the guys, the crew members, a lot of times we'll show up on race day or on Friday with the wrong shirts, and
oops.
So now we've got everybody's got a list of which races are which.
Everybody gets the shirt memo. There you go. Got a question you'd like to leave one of our future guests? Give the GM Fan Forum a call. Next week's guest will be the current championship leader in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, one Mike Wallace, here on This Week in NASCAR next week.
If you have a question for the GM Fan Forum, call us at 704-527-8958. Questions for our weekly guests must be received by Tuesday mornings at 8:30 a.m. The GM Fan Forum line will stay open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all other questions. Tune into NASCAR's Inside Winston Cup Racing, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Speedvision to see who our weekly guest will be.
Back on This Week in NASCAR with our final couple of minutes with Stacy Compton, one of the Rookie of the Year candidates in the NASCAR Winston Cup Tour, as we get set to head to Richmond for Saturday night's Pontiac Excitement 400, a track you have experience on in the Truck Series. How does that change your weekend at all, or does it?
I get to sleep in my own bed some nights because it's close enough to
That's
home.
true.
Yeah, I mean,
about that.
Richmond's been awful good to us. You know, last year we led a lot of it, qualified outside pole, and it's hometown for me. And we got, I think, 3 busloads of fans going up from Lynchburg.
Really?
So it's hometown for me. We're pretty excited about going back up there. You know, we unfortunately got the chance to run the late models up there back a long time ago, and then of course we've been there a bunch of times in the trucks, and it's been a good track for us in the past. So we're pretty excited about going up there and seeing if we can get that Cougar Melon Taurus a little bit further up than 28 this week. Just about the perfect racetrack, Richmond? I think it is. I mean, it's, you know, both corners are completely different. It's pretty tough to get set up for. 1 and 2 is pretty tight, and 3 and 4, you know, is a pretty sweeping corner. And that's another one of those tracks that's really easy to overdrive if you're not careful. You can really overdrive that place, and but it's a beautiful place. I mean, I don't know of anybody in the garage that says, man, I hate that we're going to Richmond this weekend. So, and it's great for the fans. I mean, the worst seat there is the best seat in the house. So it's a heck of a place to go racing. 15 seconds or less. Expectations on this season for you, a good year, will be what? Top 25. Top 25 in points, and if we can continue to improve every week, that's what we need to do. You know, first year in trucks we were 13th, second year 7th, third year 4th, and we need a progression like that in Winston Cup. So top 25 this year will be a good year. Stacy, thanks. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate you coming down to be part of the show. Best of luck to you at Richmond this weekend. Sounds good. Stacy Compton, driver of the Kodiak Ford from Elling Racing. We're all done. Mike Wallace next week. I'm Allen Bestwick. Thanks for watching This Week in NASCAR.
This Week in NASCAR has been brought to you by Fram, who asks, when was the last time you changed your air filter? New for all race fan families, introducing the Simpson Child Car Safety Seat, available soon at these racing places. For more information, visit the website at simpsonraceproducts.com. Apparel for This Week in NASCAR has been provided by Chase Authentics. Chase Authentics, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR. For more of the latest NASCAR news and information, log on to www.speedvision.com.